to create a battle hopper. Back to those 0-1 guys. And this card also is a 0-1 itself.
So again, Concubunny is like a sort of this component of the Shin'Hair deck. This one's pretty weak on her own, but it does create an endless source of battle hoppers once you can get it going. The question is only, is that good? I'm not sure if I believe it is, and it still dies. Everything just falls over to one extinction, and then it's hard to get started again. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, and if the Shin'Hair deck exists, this person will probably go in it. This applies to both limited and constructed, obviously.
My thoughts about this card for constructed are that it may not be the card that you want. It costs mana, and it takes another Shin'Hair out of combat for the turn to make a guy. At 3 cost, there's already Wretched Brood, and at 2 cost, there's Runts of the Litter. So there's already cheaper token-making cards that you can play over this, and those cards don't take one of your existing Shin'Hair out of action for a turn. It's possible that it'll be played, but I don't know, I have my doubts. In Limited, if you're on the Shin'Hair plan, like you have some Bucktooth Commanders or the black Shin'Hair that like to eat other Shin'Hair, then this is going to be a card that you want. I mean, you don't have the luxury of just picking Wretched Brood and Runts of the Litter, whatever. So, if you're playing Limited and you're on the Shin'Hair plan, this guy's a solid pick. But again, if you're not, he loses all his value because he requires other Shin'Hair. And if you're just making 0-1s, then that's not really doing anything.
Yeah, I generally main the green deck, and I found that most of the time, turn 2 you put out like Runts of the Litter or something, and turn 3 you have the option of putting out a Concubunny, or you can put out a Command Tower, a Bucktooth Commander, and evolve something to make those runs useful. Or you can start making more of them, and if you make more of them, you take the turn to put her out, and they punch and kill 2 Shin'Hair, or you take damage. So it's just a momentum swing, whichever way you look at it. It doesn't seem all that useful.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of practical application for it in Limited so far. I don't think anybody's played one and I've been like, oh darn, now I'm gonna get jump blocked every turn. They're not too scary. I guess if somebody drafted like a really heavy Shin'Hair deck, it could end up being pretty useful. Or if they just got like a lot of Bucktooth Commanders and Command Towers that were actually letting their battle hoppers do something. But yeah, in constructed, pretty useful card. The next card is Evolve, one of the ones that we just talked about for making Shin'Hair bigger. It's a 3-mana casting cost, 1 wild threshold basic action, and it each troop you control gets a permanent +1/+1. So makes your whole field bigger.
So this card really wishes it was just an enchantment. The fact that it's a sorcery or a basic action is actually considerably worse. In effect, you get to play, if you play it on curve, you have a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and you play Evolve. And then anything you play after that is not bigger. It's because it only happens the one time you play it. However, given that, it's still totally playable in any deck that wants to put a lot of guys in play and make them bigger. There's simply no better option really to play. Basically, the Shin'Hair deck is the deck that wants to do that. Though you can splash it into like a white or red aggro deck, I suppose, as well, with a lot of 1-drops or something. In Limited, this card is fine. It's a boost, permanent boost to your whole team. I would draft them not necessarily high, but it does have a pretty big effect on the board. Since the creatures are generally pretty small in this format, giving your whole team +1/+1 is definitely pretty relevant. So for Limited, it's a pretty reasonable pick. For Constructed, it goes in certain decks because nothing is better.
Yeah, pretty much agree on all points there. This is one of the cards that makes your Shin'Hair tokens actually do stuff. So the Constructed deck is going to need this or something like it. In Limited, again, if you're on the Shin'Hair deck, it's really good. If you're just playing random creatures, it's probably okay also. One of the unfortunate things I've noticed here is a lot of the like shin hair pieces are uncommon, which kind of makes it look like it will be harder to make this deck than I originally thought. But yeah, this card in limited, it's good if you're playing creatures. Constructed, you'll probably want to play it for the shin hair deck, but if you don't have a lot of tokens to buff with it, then you'll find something better.
Yeah, pretty much same thoughts. That I don't think it's particularly useful except in those mass creature decks. I think there is potential for it maybe in the red green aggro deck, since all of the red creatures seem to suffer from having only 1 or 2 toughness, and that could beef them up a little bit. But I haven't actually tried that, so I will probably do that later tonight. The next spell we have here is another 3 mana casting cost action, but this one has 3 Wild Threshold and an X on it. Eye of Creation has, as an additional cost to this action, pay X. The X is reveal the top X cards of your library, and you may play any of the revealed cards with cost X or less for free. If you play another Eye of Creation this way, it transforms into a copy of this action, and shuffle all cards not played into your deck.
So I think this is the most dangerous card in the set. It's not necessarily the most powerful, but it is the most dangerous in that it has the most potential to be broken and create a broken combo deck. This card is effectively a 1-card combo at a certain mana cost, probably where X equals about 6 or 7. At that point, you'll probably just win the game. Notice that Eye of Creation can play Eye of Creation again, so if you hit your second one, you'll just keep going off harder and harder, and probably play a significant portion of your deck all at once, and then proceed to win the game. I think this is quite a powerful card on its own, but it requires a certain amount of support, which I'm not sure is here yet. Usually cards like this want a lot of mana acceleration and card draw. Although the acceleration is sort of here, it's pretty slow. Things like Chlorophilia are not Dark Ritual, and the card draw is extremely weak, so you can't actually guarantee to draw your Eye of Creation. So in Constructed, this is a combo deck. This is the combo card. In Limited, this card is basically unplayable. You need a whole lot of mana, and you can't get a guarantee you're going to draw anything. I guess I'd still play it as like a super late game bomb that costs 10. So I think if you play it in that line, it should be okay. It'll probably get you a couple of creatures. But in Limited, it's no great shakes. But in Constructed, it's basically the combo card, if that deck exists.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about this card. It does appear that it's one of the most powerful or dangerous cards in the set so far, being that it can just flat out end a game when it resolves, or maybe end the game on the next turn's attack step. But the point is you play this and then you win shortly thereafter. The big problem is the mana. Like, Chlorophilia is good, but there's nothing else that really cranks up your mana to where you're casting this for a high number early. In Limited, I don't know. Like, if there's nothing else in the pack that you're going to take, I guess you could take this, or if it's worth a lot of money, you can kind of justify picking it over something else. It's really random, and it's going to cost a lot of mana. I'm typically going to be trying to pick a card that's less costly than this, but it's not the end of the world if you end up playing it.
So I have a question for you guys. How would this work in Magic? It says reveal the top X cards of your deck. Is that the same thing as drawing?
No, it's just reveal. Those cards never enter your hand.
Okay. I was wondering if you might accidentally deck yourself by comboing all the way out. You lose.
No, you cannot deck yourself with this card.
All right, cool.
I also want to point out, though, that in Limited, this card doesn't really cost less than 8. So if your deck can't support an 8-drop, I recommend not playing it.
I actually disagree. I think if you're heavy green and you can afford the threshold, if you've got it in your hand and you're in a bad spot or you're close to finishing off your opponent, I think slapping it for like a 3, paying 6 total, is not particularly bad, because Well, it's not specifically card draw. It's sort of like it, because it can get you a couple more creatures on the field pretty quickly.
Okay, the problem with only costing 3 is that it's only going to reveal 3 cards, and if those cards cost more than 3, you can't play them. So it really gets better the more mana you put into it. I think when you hit 5 cards and you can hit things that cost less than 5, you're likely to hit a lot of cards in your deck, and you'll hit a couple of them. With only 3 cards, you could hit like a land, a 4-drop, and a random spell, and that's not going to do you a whole lot of good. With 5, you're going to hit like a couple things that are probably actually useful right now, which is when you want it. Which is why I think really it's going to cost 8. Like this kind of spell when it costs 3. This isn't Mind's Desire, and this isn't Magic. Like it needs to be a lot of mana.
If you look at the wild set in general, most of the cards cost 3 or less. So it's, I mean, it's not going to be like the greatest thing ever. It's not going to like guaranteed finish somebody, but I think it's not a bad card or a bad play at 3. If that's all of the sources that you have, I think it's okay trying to finish somebody off with that, or trying to save yourself if you're in a pretty tight spot.
Assuming your cards won't have any relevant value at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I could see myself, like, say I'm in a pinch, like I know I'm going to lose if I don't finish it quickly or something, or I have no other plays. I mean, I could see myself potentially casting it where X equals 3 in limited. But with an effect like this, I'm going to be more tempted to hold out until I draw those extra mana sources so that I can really go crazy on it.
And I mean, obviously, if you have nothing else to do and you're going to die, you'll play with X equals 1 if that's really the way it is. But like, I don't want to draft it thinking that if this is the worst possible situation, then I guess I can play this card. No, if I'm drafting it, I want to play it and have to actually have it do something. Otherwise, I'll just pick something else, like a creature that costs 3. Then at least it's guaranteed to hit a guy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of dudes in green who cost 3 or less, and I think there's actually an okay chance that in 3 cards you're going to get one more creature at least.
I think we're pretty much in agreement. Like, you want to cast it for more, but it's not the
Yeah.
end of the world if you cast it for 3 or less,
OP card.
Fun card, please.
Okay. Next up.
Okay, next up we have Genesis Hydra. Genesis Hydra is a 4-mana casting cost, 2 wild threshold, 2/2, that whenever this troop is dealt damage, it gets a permanent plus power equal to its power and plus toughness equal to its toughness.
So the problem with this card is that it starts off as a 2/2, and it doesn't get any abilities till it's dealt damage, but it can't die, because if it dies, the triggers won't actually work. I mean, they will, but it'll be in the graveyard, so it won't really matter at that point. So this card is basically unplayable. It's really hard to only deal 1 damage to something. You basically have to do it yourself. And although there is like a couple of ways to do that, like that's not what you want to be doing, is shooting your own guy for 1 damage. It's hard and awkward. And you'd much rather use your removal spells on them or their creatures. So I think that this guy is hugely overcosted. 4 for a 2/2 with basically no ability is unplayable. In limited, certainly guaranteed in limited, it's not going to do anything. And in constructed, the deck that makes this thing work is awful beyond belief. So I recommend not playing it in any situation ever.
Yeah. The art on this card is pretty sweet, but unfortunately that's all that's sweet about this card. 2/2 for 4 is just bad news, and then basically anytime it's going to take damage, it's going to die. Like any burn spell, like burn in particular, any of the other ones, kill it outright. Any creature that you're playing unlimited, it's probably going to have 2 power, or you're just not going to attack into this, or you're not going to block it. So it's going to be very hard to actually make it get bigger. If you have combat tricks like Wild Growth to give it 4/4 at quick speed, then it's going to go a little crazy. But the times that you don't have that Wild Growth, it's just a 2/2 for 4. And yeah, so in limited, it looks like a huge trap. Like you want to play this thinking it's going to be all big, but it's not going to happen. In constructed, there are just better, more reliable creatures. Yeah, I will probably never ever cast this card.
I guess because it gets permanent plus attack and defense. I suppose if you drafted a whole bunch of raised deads over that